So these are the topics that we've talked about. I want to just check in to see where you're at, and you can check in to see where I'm at. But I feel like I'd like to hear from you, like what questions you have about some of the stuff that we've talked about, or
where are we going as a society? Like, I feel like when talking about like AI, we have all these technological advancements and these promises, but I haven't seen any of that yet, at least in terms of like in healthcare, for example, or like in education, for example. And then we talk about all these different wars and these conflicts, and it's like, well, innocent people are dying. Like, we're not solving anything. We just keep bickering at each other about the same problems. And it's like, can we not just like stop for a second and like think, what the heck are we doing?
The word on the street is that President Trump is going to reschedule marijuana from a Schedule 1 drug to a Schedule 2, so it'll be more widely available. So maybe we just need people to get stoned. I don't know. You know what I mean? Sit in a circle and pass joints around. First off, look, AI's coming, man. It's coming. Do not, what happens is with new technologies and all, people who are really in the middle of it, they'll throw out estimates about when things are going to happen, like with climate change. Climate change is coming. It's happening, man. It's changing. We just don't know when. We don't know how. There are a lot of things, right? The same is true with AI. So just understand that people will say in 5 years or in 10 years or whatever, but listen, AI replicates the human brain. Computers, essentially what it is we're going to use computers to replicate the human brain. And then we're going to use that information to replicate the human bodies, because we're going to be able to build robots and so on and so forth to do things that we never could imagine that they could possibly do. And that's all going to happen. And when we're not talking about replicating my brain with like twice its power, 10 times his power, 100 times his power. I mean, we are talking about that, but we're ultimately talking about 1,000 times, 100,000 times, 1,000,000 times the power of my brain. And imagine all the things that you thought about in order to get here today, just to make this happen. And imagine your brain was 1,000,000 times, 100,000 times more powerful. Just to think about the kinds of things that are going to unfold in the world. That's coming. And it's got good and it's got bad. That's the nature of it. But it's really fascinating. That's why I think about being you all. And I think, God, I would love to be able to just come back in 70 years and see. But in any case, about the conflicts, we are a cooperative species. We're very cooperative. So it's interesting that you say all these conflicts that we can't resolve. What about the cooperation that's everywhere? Think about when you got up this morning to right now, unless you were looking at social media. Bro, how much conflict have you seen today around you? I would say probably almost none. Maybe somebody honked their horn downtown at a stoplight or something because some student was on their phone walking across the street when it said don't walk, And then the student turned around and did that or whatever. Okay, but there's not very much conflict in the world. And so it's pretty amazing that we have any at all. And because 99.9% of human social interaction is non-conflictual, and it's people getting along quite well with one another. Wait, did you give him a mic? Yeah. So I just want to say, just think about that. Hold those two things in juxtaposition. I'm not saying there isn't conflict and there are wars and so on, but look at, man, you're from countries all over the world. You're different ethnicities, different races, different cultures. You have completely different ideologies and thoughts about how the world should be organized. And some of you love this and you hate that. Some of you are strictly carnivores and others are vegan. At the very least, you're certainly tolerating each other quite well. I'm pretty impressed with that. So maybe it's enough for us, just sociologically speaking anyway. I find it fascinating how well we get along with one another. Pretty cool.
I just wanted to add a little bit. You said that we have a surprisingly lack of conflict, but I think in this specific scenario about where we are specifically, I mean, you brought out the anecdote about this morning about how, like, a normal student in this class, for example, wouldn't necessarily see that much conflict, but on the flip side, rather, if you look at maybe somebody in Ukraine or somebody in North Africa or someone in the Middle East, they would seem a lot more conflict as opposed to.
Yeah, but listen, but even then, okay, look, I mean, I've been in war zones, I've been in all sorts of places, I've been in places where there's conflict right there. It's like, yeah, I'm drinking my tea. I mean, all I'm saying is, I've been studying war my entire life. And I'm just surprised at the ability of human beings to get along with one.
I just want your opinion on, so talking about AI, you know the company Palantir, the software device tracking company, Palantir? They just signed like a lot of government contracts, and they like do a lot of like planning with like tracking devices and stuff like that. And it's like through the use of AI. So I was just wondering like your opinion on that and how you feel that'll be in like a societal setting.
Well, here's the thing, man. There's the good and the bad of AI. And you know, what's going to happen is for like my generation, there's a lot of bad of AI and things that are coming that your generation's not really going to see as a problem. And I think invasiveness, the ability to kind of have outside forces track exactly what you're doing and see what you're doing is not necessarily going to be a problem for you all.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I see a lot of like news about it, and it kind of gets me worried sometimes. Like,
well, what are you worried about, though?
Just tracking my phone, stuff like that.
So,
I feel like, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, right? It's kind of interesting, and now I'm just going to speak as a sociologist, okay? Not as an American, all right? Not as an American who's all about freedom and this kind of thing, right? I'm just going to talk as a sociologist. Follow the Chinese. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Chinese government's following. You could ask. We could have a conversation about this in class, but follow somebody whose their government is following them and tracking them at all times, man. And they basically, most people, not everybody, but so many people, you just acclimate yourself. What's going to happen? Let me just tell you what's going to happen. You're just going to start being tracked. And you're just going to orient your thinking about it and your way of being in the world about it. And you're going to change your ideology. And, it's going to be like, well, it's just what happens. That's what the government does, and that's the way it is. And then I don't break any laws, so I don't care if they track me, if they watch me. When I'm in a society that there's cameras everywhere, it's like, well, whatever, the cameras are watching me. I'm doing my thing. And so that's how human beings are going to adjust our thinking, including here in the United States, because we will adjust our thinking, because I think, this is my own opinion, I'm not saying I want it or I don't want it, but I think this is where we're going to go. And governments will have greater control over people. And the irony is, a lot of the people who are all about freedom, and whether it's First Amendment or Second Amendment or whatever, will also be quite willing to just give up that freedom in the right situation. It won't matter to them. And so...
yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I think, for me personally, that's where we're going. We're going to have a lot more control over human beings.
The Charlie Kirk funeral was Sunday, right? And it was a spectacle. And Trump was there. He announced the cure for autism. What do you think about that? I'm a little curious of what that entails.
The cure for autism? No, it's not a cure. Oh yeah, now they're saying. I follow the scientific method in that I'm trying to understand causality. The causality I want to understand is the causality of what makes humans do what they do, and what makes people acting in groups do what they do. So I'd want to know, for example, you mentioned the funeral. I want to know, my first thing is wow, who showed up there? Like, who came? You
I
know?
was also confused why he announced that there. That was a little odd.
Well, yeah, but there are a lot of things that President Trump does like that he just does, right? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I don't know, man.
I don't know either, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I just shake my head and I'm like,
Recently in social media, I've been seeing a lot of people getting fired from their job or arrested for like mocking it or writing a message or their opinion about
not arrested, I don't think. But anyway, go ahead. Fired and
losing their jobs.
yeah.
So I guess my question would be, do you think that this imposes on our First Amendment right? And what do you think this means for us as a society?
Why don't we do Thursday's class on this issue? All right. The free speech, or what you all think about it.
You said yourself that you're a social scientist.
Yeah.
So therefore, what does research look like to you in today's climate?
Well, one is right there. It's like, how are you all thinking about the freedom to speak out? How are you all thinking about cameras that are watching you? You know, like how's like is your generation, just for an example, right? Because for a lot of people in your generation, the hypothesis would be, yeah, these things don't matter a lot because you're used to being on camera, you're used to being tracked, you're used to being just having sort of more eyes on you, right? People of my generation, you pull a phone out with the camera and people can get really weird about it, but you all are like, it's just kind of life, right? Or the question of freedom to be able to say what you want to say. So it's a curiosity. So for example, one of the reasons I do the class in the way that I do is because I'm really fascinated by learning about what you all are thinking about. So I gave the example of China just as one example. It's like, well, those of you who study that or who have been to a place like China, how is that for you? Like, does it change the way you think about having cameras on you at all times? Every time you use your phone to pay for something, that information goes somewhere else. So it's like when you go, when you get on a bus or you get on a train or whatever, someone can track that. And like, we can't necessarily do that here, but how are you all thinking about it? What's the news on that? That's what the research is.
And I was just wondering if we were ever going to discuss the current immigration situation going on.
Yes.
I know we already kind of touched on it with MAGA and like a little bit with DEI, but I feel like it would just be really interesting to hear some people's opinions. I mean, I come from a family of immigrants, so I would just really like to know what some people think.
Okay, yes, I had the idea just the other day. Let's do a class on immigration.
Biggest issue when it comes to that is that people are getting their visas taken away, especially international students, and that does kind of tie into like the free speech situation.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Yeah, there are a lot of things there, man. Like if you're an international student and you're on a visa, like you're gonna be, how careful are you about what you say in the U.S. right now? Like that wasn't an issue 10 years ago, and suddenly like, whoa. And so, yeah, I'm really curious about it. And then some of you may not think about it at all.
How you think, or if you do think the left and the right could come together to solve the problem of gun violence on both sides without having to, I guess, put blame on either side or attack each other trying to come to that conclusion.
Dude, President Trump is going to reschedule marijuana so that it's more widely available, and people are going to sit around in little groups and pass joints around and get stoned together. There you go. In all seriousness, through conversation and dialogue and engagement and having thoughtful and reasonable of conversations as you can possibly have with people with whom you don't always agree. And also with people with whom you absolutely 100% disagree. Because you can't argue with an enemy that you don't ever talk to. Because the arguments are just one side. It's just something up here, but you don't actually know what individual people are thinking. And what happens is people, when they get on social media, when they put stuff out in the world, it's always the extreme position. But everybody has very thoughtful positions. So, you look at Charlie Kirk, for example. I keep seeing these things that Charlie Kirk has said. Like, here's a statement that he made, and here's a statement, and here's a statement. And it's always something, if they're against Charlie Kirk, then it's a statement that's really like, whoa, 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 whoa. God, oh, that was pretty extreme. It's made hundreds of thousands of statements. If you go through all the videos we've ever made, you can find little clips of things that I've said. And so you got to get to the place of engagement and thoughtfulness. And almost everybody can go there and will go there and does go there.
To answer her question down there and talk about our First Amendment, the Constitution protects that, and we're allowed to say what we want, but it doesn't protect us from our employers if they want to fire us.
Yeah.
That's their choice to do that too.
Yeah.
And they can make up any rule they want. You're underperforming, wherever the case may be.
Yeah.
Maybe just because they don't like you.
Yeah.
And no one's being arrested or persecuted for what they say about Charlie Kirk.
Well, here's the thing. You could make the argument it doesn't take much to make an argument that if I say something that someone doesn't, I can do all of the stuff that I do, everything I do that's like, yeah, this is good. This guy, he's pretty reasonable. He's teaching this class. He's like doing a great job with his students. He's trying to show them many different perspectives, and that's a good thing. And wow, man, I get emails sometimes from people that are like, yeah, we need more professors like you. And I'm like, well, most professors are like me, actually. They just don't stream their classes. And, they're trying to see multiple perspectives, so on and so forth. They could do everything I do. I could say one thing, and boom, that could be the end of me, right? You could reasonably argue that could be persecution. Persecution is too strong, but you could reasonably argue that, like, yeah, that's probably not. That wouldn't be. Would that be a good thing? Let's say get rid of this guy. Okay, he may. Let's say it's an accident, and like, I don't know. Like you could make that, but you are right in that Penn State can do whatever they want, and I'm not. There's nothing. I don't have anything protecting me unless I have it in my contract, with Penn State, and we've all signed. But yeah, so I think that's really that's the thing. I think, and that's the thoughtful, reasonable, the conversation. So some people take it really far, and other people.
Kind of going off of like the left and the right getting along. Something I think about a lot of the time is like before. I think about it with the Trump era of politics, and I'm not saying he was the sole one who did it or he brought it in, but like, do you think politics will ever go back to like being boring? And by me, like, do you know what I mean by that? Like when I watch like Obama debates or like early 2000 debates of presidents, it's like they're saying nice things about each other. They're very cordial. And I feel like I said, I don't know. I don't think Trump necessarily did it himself, but the Trump era of politics, I'd say like a lot more disrespectful, calling each other names.
Okay, since I can remember, which is in high school, which is the election of Jimmy Carter in 1976. That election was based on change. We need change, we need change, we need change. And Jimmy Carter, the peanut farmer from Georgia, was going to come in and he was going to bring about a lot of change. And then he didn't do it. So then it was Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan said, it's going to be change. And Ronald Reagan, he pushed the envelope a little bit and did some things. And then after Ronald Reagan, we go to the next one and the next one. So everybody, it's all about change. It's hard to change a big, complex bureaucracy. Everyone keeps saying they want change. Now, I don't necessarily think, doesn't mean I think that a lot of change was necessary, but the point is, you've got to have change. Well, people in the past 10 to 12 years have been insisting we really need serious change. It wasn't going to happen by boring politics. It was not going to happen. It was that kind of change in a system that's just spinning along, right? We're not out of control. The U.S. was doing quite well. The economy the stock market was killing it and crushing it. Unemployment's been low, during, it's fine. But
Hey, Sam.
hang on one sec. It had to be somebody like really intense to not be boring. Okay? And sometimes you got to shake the system up. And when you shake the system up, a lot of people don't like it, but it's like, yeah, well, it's not boring anyway. That's my best way to say that.